In this video segment, we will talk about the typical development of fear in young children. If you think about it, we're typically afraid of what we think will harm us, not necessarily what will harm us. And this is true of young children as well. And fear can be based on many things. Things that have happened in the past, how much someone understands a situation. For example, if you are giving your very first presentation in front of a large group, you will likely be a little more fearful than if it is your 10th or 11th or 12th presentation, because you just understand more about how things will flow. Watching others show fear, and this is a big one with young children, we often model fear about things that children otherwise wouldn't fear. This is true in terms of maybe very small bugs. And situations that we aren't prepared for can often cause fear. This can be especially important for us to keep in mind when young children join our classroom. It's always really important to make sure that they have an opportunity to explore the classroom with their family nearby and gradually enter a classroom. There are books that can be read to young children that tell them about what they can expect when they join a preschool classroom. The threat of punishment. Unfortunately, many of our children live in fear of punishment, especially harsh punishment, that makes them so fearful that they're almost unwilling to explore their environment. Pain associated with this situation. A child, for example, who received a dog bite might be more likely to be fearful of dogs in the future. The earliest fear that young children, infants, experience would be fear of strangers. And this happens along with their cognitive development that gives them object permanence. And so around this time, infants are starting to understand that objects exist even when they no longer see them. And so a young child's favorite object, if you will, is their primary care provider. Erik Erikson, remember, says that in this stage, the most important task is for young children to develop a sense of trust or mistrust about the world. And so cognitively, when they start to understand that the person who protects them and cares for them isn't the person who's holding them right then or isn't with them right then, can be tricky, can be scary. And so we see that young children around this age will get very agitated if somebody holds them who is not their primary care provider. And this can be true even of, maybe grandma who the baby sees once a week can become a pretty scary person if that baby is used to dad, for example, if dad's a stay-at-home dad, being with that baby all day, and then when the baby goes to grandma, that can be pretty unsettling for the young baby. And then around 12 to 18 months, we see another common period of separation anxiety. And so even really simple things things that seem simple to us can be very tricky for a young child. And so we always have to keep that in mind. And so it might seem like a lot of fun for a toddler, for example, to go one day a week into a child care center that has like a parent's day out and allows the child to play with peers for an hour. And that can be a great experience, but it can also be quite stressful for the young child as the adult they're most used to leaves them. And we will talk a little bit more here about how to help children cope with separation from their family on the next slide. But another thing to think about in this age is that transformation of primary care providers can be really scary for young children too. So even something really simple like getting a haircut or getting new glasses will throw everything off. So if you have very long hair and then you cut your hair very short, be prepared that a young child might not know who you are. If you are a teacher in a classroom, keep this in mind. If you typically keep your hair pulled back in a ponytail, for example, and then you have it down one day and a toddler seems uncomfortable with you, you might want to pull your hair back and show the child, say, "It's me, it's Miss Christine." And something like that can go a long way to helping a child feel more comfortable. And so separation from the family, This is a big one. And so a few helpful hints here. A gradual separation can be really good. And so you don't want the parent to just drop the child at the door and run out. The child needs a little period where they can get used to the room, see that their parent finds that room to be a safe place. Maybe the parent can come in, sit down, read a couple books before the day actually gets started. And so that can be something very helpful. Home visits, if your center can do them, are fabulous. Some centers go out before a new child starts and actually visit the home, talk to the family, maybe eat some cookies. It doesn't have to be a very long visit. 20 minutes is probably plenty of time, but this can go a long way to helping children feel comfortable in a new class if their teacher has been out to their home and they see a connection there between the home and the school. Helping children cope with the feelings. We don't want to just push it under the rug and just have a day as usual, because that can be very difficult for the child, but for the teachers and the other children in the classroom, it will also be pretty stressful. Some things that have worked would be having a picture or even a little photo book of the family for the child to look at. And sometimes you'll see children, even very young children, take that picture and maybe go sit in a quiet corner and look at that picture for a while, and that can be very useful. One thing my son's preschool did, he went to 2 morning-a-week preschool, and before school started, all of the families drew a picture for the child and put the child's name on it and wrote little messages of encouragement and had images that were things that the child really enjoyed, maybe a rocket ship or My Little Pony or whatever it is that the child is into. And then the child could go around the room and find their picture and stand by their picture, and that was their connection with the parents. Also, helping children write letters to their parents, even if they can't write yet, they can dictate a letter that you can write down, or of course you can give them paper and pencil and they can write in their own fashion. Also, a pre-visit from the child before the child actually starts in a center can be very helpful. So the first time the child comes to the center, they shouldn't necessarily stay. They're just coming to check out their new school. And you can encourage parents with camera phones to take pictures and then share those at home. And so the parent might be able to go home later and say, okay, this is the room where you'll be going potty, and here's the sink where you'll wash your hands, and here's the area with all the books, and I took a picture of these couple books because you seemed excited to read these books when you started school, and here's a picture of the snack table, here's a picture of your teacher. And so those things can really help a child feel comfortable as they're getting started in a new center. Also, and sometimes this can be the biggest thing for you as a teacher to take care of, would be making sure that parents feel comfortable, helping parents cope with their feelings so they're passing positive words and attitudes along to the children. The body language of a parent can really tell a child something about how much they should feel safe in the environment, because if a parent, for example, starts crying at drop-off, or kind of clings to the child, or says something like, "Oh, you're just my baby, I can't believe you're starting school." While these are absolutely valid feelings for the parent to have, it also kind of sends the message to the child that there's something scary about what's about to happen. And so, always help parents feel comfortable about you and give them information about how important it is to be positive so the child feels positive. At the beginning I said it was important to have a gradual separation, and that's true, but you also want to be careful that separations don't go on and on and on to the point where the child receives the message that the parents don't trust the center and don't feel safe just leaving the child at the center. And this time frame is different for every child and every family, for sure, but you just want to make sure that the child's getting the message that the parents feel safe leaving their child there. Also, keep the beginning of the day simple. Don't try to have really elaborate activities planned at the same time. You might need to have a couple children on your lap. I know at my son's preschool, they at the beginning of the day, there was a teacher who would just take a couple of the kids, my son included, and sit down and read books with them until they felt comfortable. And so my son in that classroom came to see that time as a very special time when he could sit on his teacher's lap and read a couple books and have quiet time, and then that is what he needed to get ready for the rest of the day. Also, goodbye routines and rituals can be really good. There's the book, The Kissing Hand, of course, where mom puts a kiss in the little raccoon's hand and then he keeps that with her all day. Some children during drop-off stand at the door and wave goodbye till their parents are out of sight, or they might have a snap, snap, clap, something that they do that's their little ritual as they're leaving. Whatever feels fun to the family. And so moving on, talking about 2 and 4-year-olds, fantasy and reality are very blurry. In fact, this continues for some years, but certainly 2 to 4-year-olds have a very blurry sense of what is real. And so we want to make sure that we are significantly limiting young children's exposure to violence and to scary things because they carry these with them. Sometimes people think movies that they themselves watched as children might be okay for their children, but some of these movies have become much more sophisticated. Spider-Man, Batman, that sort of thing, which as adults we often associate with young children, but in fact the new versions of these movies are PG rated, in some cases R rated, and definitely not appropriate for young children. Also, children this age are very egocentric and tend to attribute their own feelings and motives to objects that are not people. So, a vacuum cleaner that makes a lot of noise and sucks things up probably wants to suck them up. A toilet that sucks away waste might suck them away. And so they think these things are alive because they move and they make noise just like other children, just like themselves. And so they can, at this age, be scared of those things. Around 4 to 6 years of age, we still see the line between fantasy and reality being very blurry for young children. Some common fears are monsters, something hiding under the bed, the dark, water, heights, animals. And so typically at this age, children don't experience stranger anxiety anymore because they understand that their parents are coming back for them when they leave. That doesn't mean a child loves the idea about going to kindergarten, but it's not the same thing as stranger danger. It's more some of these fantasy things that tend to scare most 4 to 6-year-olds. 6 to 11-year-olds are moving into more realistic fears, the doctors, dentists, storms, tornadoes, and there isn't so much a fear among healthy children of things like monsters. But there is still this idea of bad guys being out there, and this can be fed really through the media as well, children being exposed to things that are still not developmentally appropriate. In adolescence, we move on to fears that are more based around how others see us, dating, being rejected, standing up and giving a speech at school, that sort of thing can be quite scary to an adolescent. And so sometimes we think that childhood really is a carefree time. Children are just playing and having fun, and that's not necessarily always the case. We know that it can be a time where fears are very real to young children. We want to make sure that we're taking their fears seriously, and we don't want to tease them. Sometimes if someone knows a child, for example, is afraid of clowns, they'll use that as kind of a game and scare them with a clown. That's not funny, and actually it can be quite damaging to a young child. And we really want to be careful not to shame a child. If a child has a fear about something, they do have to learn to live with, like bugs in our environment, for example. We can offer some kind of gradual desensitization in an appropriate way. You know, hold the bug in your hand, let them get a little bit closer until they feel comfortable. One thing we can do also is make sure that children are prepared ahead of time, but not too far ahead of time for something new. So maybe the day before a doctor's visit, you can talk about it. Not too far ahead because they can just stew in it, and don't spring it on them at the last minute. Really short, simple explanations, and always give the truth. If a child's going to the doctor and asks if it will hurt, it's much better to say, it might hurt a little bit. when you get a shot, but it should hurt about as long as it takes to count to 10. An honest answer like this will help children know they can trust you.